Hi everyone, thank you for inviting me to speak at this conference. My name is Susanne Gløersen and I'm the Deputy Head of Sustainable Banking in SEB Norway. I have more than 10 years of experience in sustainability, so I've been following the developments the last years closely. And though this is a conference on the blue ocean, I will focus a bit more on shipping, since this is a sector we've been working quite closely with in Norway. But to begin with some words about SEB and our journey in sustainable finance, because these days, all banks focus on sustainable finance, and there's a lot of things going on. But it actually started with SEB doing a green bond in 2007-2008 with the World Bank. So that was the first green bond kickstarting this market that we're seeing today. We also did a blue bond supporting the Nordic Investment Bank with to clean up the Baltic Sea back in 2019. And in SEB, we have more than 30 experts in sustainability working quite specialized. We have Marie Baumgart, which worked with the technical expert group for the taxonomy. And we have another colleague in the platform that will set the new criteria for the taxonomy. So a lot of experience in the bank. But from that, let's go to look at a bit of market developments. So I wanted to show you how this is developing. And as you can see, there's really been a record shift in issuance of sustainable finance this year, as you can see in the purple graph here. And within the first 7 months of 2020, we've seen $950 billion in issuance in sustainable finance. This is more than 20% more than what was done in the whole of 2020. And in July alone, for example, the market saw almost $78 billion worth of transactions. So as you can see, this is really accelerating in 2020. It might be also easier to see at this slide, the section to the left, but where you see the July bar is already raising beyond the 2020 numbers. We've seen issuance, or most issuance in Europe, but definitely North America following, and Asia as well. But the Nordics is also quite a strong contributor to this market, as we see it. Next one, green bonds, which is the larger part of the market. We see that already more issuance this year than the whole of 2020. But what is interesting is that we're seeing that sustainability-linked financing, which we will talk more about, is really accelerating. This is where we see the most of the growth. So for sustainability-linked loans, for example, where we saw the first one in 2017, currently the numbers have tripled compared to Q2 last year. And by the month of end of July, sustainability-linked bonds were already beyond 30% beyond the whole of 2020. So that says quite a lot. And in the end, we have sustainability-linked bonds, which is quite a new market. We saw the first one with Enel issuing a sustainability-linked bond in 2019. But since then, we've really seen this market taking off. So from Q1 to Q2, issuance has more than doubled. And though this is a young market, we've seen more than 5 times issuances of what was done of the whole of last year. So I just wanted to give you some numbers and show that this market is really taking off. And to explain a bit more so that you all know what we're talking about here, these are the differences in the sustainable finance market. We talk about use of proceeds. This can be green bonds, it can be blue bonds, And then we talk about performance-based approach. So to the right here, which is a sustainability-linked financing. And the difference is that for use of proceeds, so green bonds and blue bonds, the capital has to be used for dedicated green projects or assets, for example, or obviously blue projects, supported by, for example, the green bond principles, and often measured by, for example, Cicero can give a rating if they view this to be light green, dark green, or medium green in terms of, let's say, how sustainable it is. But then you come to sustainability linked, and here the money can be used for all purposes, but the financing has to be tied to dedicated sustainability targets, which I'll give you some examples on. And whether you meet the targets or not, you might have a discount to what you pay or potentially a premium if you do not meet your targets. What is also important to note is that for sustainability-linked financing, the targets that are set and the KPIs, they have to be material and relevant for the sector. The targets have to be ambitious, and it has to be possible to benchmark and measure. So some examples, I mentioned this Nordic Investment Bank blue bond for the Baltic Sea. It was issued in January 2019 with a focus on reducing pollution, protecting sensitive marine environment in the Baltic Sea. So again, some of the projects that this could be used for was sewage management, reducing water pollution, and water-related climate change adaptation. We saw a lot of interest in this bond, as we had a lot more investors interested in investing that there were actually room for. Another example, which is a green bond within shipping, is TK, which was the first green bond to be issued in the Nordic market by the maritime sector. It was issued in October 2019. And here, the proceeds could go to e-shuttles, so shuttle tankers powered by battery hybrid technology and LNG. So this is the use of proceeds categories within the sustainable financing sphere. And the other example of sustainability linked to the right here is, for example, Odfjell, which was the first ever sustainability linked bond issued in shipping globally, and actually the first one in Nordic. So we're quite proud of having this bond in the market. And again, here, Odfjell set out a target that they wanted to reduce emissions by 50% in emission intensity by 2030. That is actually 25% more ambitious than the IMO target, so International Maritime Organization's target of 40% reduction within 2030. And here again, if Odfjell doesn't meet their target, they actually have to pay more to the bond investors on that. So this are some examples, and just to say that it's for some sectors, it hasn't been as easy to do green financing. So for shipping, for example, not enough dedicated green projects. We are still awaiting a lot of the technological wave, and then we will see more green bonds or blue bonds for sure. But until then, we see that sustainability-linked bonds or loans, where you tie different targets to your financing, might work better. So some other examples, just to say, is Maersk, which did sustainability-linked loan in February 2020, where the financing was linked to 60% CO2 emission reduction within 2030 per cargo moved. And we also see Dorian in International Seaways having targets to follow the IMO, a target of 50% reduction from a 2008 baseline. So moving on a bit, on the question of what works well or what works the best in the green transition, of using these sustainable financing mechanisms for ocean companies or blue ocean companies. Again, for some sectors that are, let's say, quite green bonds or blue bonds might be good suited for those sectors. But for others, such as shipping, it can be aquaculture, it can be better suited to tie dedicated sustainability targets to their financing. So to have a sustainability-linked financing. And what we can expect here, and that we need to see more of in the transition, is, for example, shipping companies setting net zero targets, which we've seen guidance coming out from the Science-Based Target Initiative for the shipping sector. What would be good targets to set? I guess we might also see more net zero targets, which has been quite common across sectors these days. So that companies in ocean industries tie net zero emission targets to their financing, which is a good step in the right direction of the green transition, and if we're to reach the Paris targets. And obviously, there's a big discussion about the taxonomy, which banks, we will look to taxonomy alignment when we give financing, and it will impact on our pricing. But just to say also that the taxonomy is quite narrow, so we will see sustainable financing products not 100% linked with the taxonomy, or not that linked, because we need more than only taxonomy aligned products to take us in the right direction. Because for shipping, for example, few ships will align well with the taxonomy in the next years. We are awaiting this big technology wave to come our way. So until then, investors will be willing to invest in sustainability-linked financing or green bonds that are not necessarily fully taxonomy aligned. But to take this also a bit beyond only the more dedicated sustainable finance products, just to say that for all our lending these days, we do assess the greenness of the companies. So we actually track them to how aligned they are with the Paris Agreement targets. And we will see more and more that the greener companies will see more approaches to discounts for their pricing and lending, where we see more premiums for browner companies. So with that, I would like to end by saying, as you've seen from the graphs, we do see this massive growth in sustainable financing. And again, particularly also, and we need both in this green transition in the industries. Again, sustainability-linked financing might be better suited for some sectors that do not have necessarily very clear green projects or assets to finance. And again, over time, the greener the companies, this will impact on the pricing for those companies. So with that, I close it off, and I hope you will have some good discussions with the other speakers in this session. Thank you.